Today I will be reading The Guide for Souls in the Future by Arnold Gallows. Narrated by Arnold Gallows. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Here's a little 2021 preface, prologue, epilogue, the one that's before everything. So, I wrote this book when I was in high school, and in word class I would sit there and I do my assignments, of course, I do all my assignments, but during the breaks or when the teacher was not looking, I would further add to this novel, and it gave me great joy to do so, and what I was aiming for was something that would affect the future in a way that the Bible had affected the future. And if people in the digital age of the future could see this novel, they would see that it would help them in their everyday life. If they would just read it every day, I would recommend reading this every day, or at least listening to this audiobook every day, like right when you wake up. Just start it, and hopefully you just plug it into your ears, and then you'll be able to listen to this book throughout the whole day, the 24-hour day, until you sleep, I guess. And actually, while you're sleeping, you can just keep the headphones in your ears, and you can just keep the sound of my voice pumping into your brain as you sleep, for that will enhance your dreams, so that you will better yourself in this world, and you will become one with the world, and that's all you want, right? Well, anyways, now for Chapter 1 of The Guide for Souls in the Future by Arnold Gallows, narrated by Arnold Gallows. Okay. Let me clear my throat. I can't read this without laughing. All right, here we go. Johnny was a detective who was in... I can't read this. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I am so sorry. Johnny was a detective who was investigating a murder that took place in a big blue house. He was shot later that day. Johnny took shot later that day. Wow! That was quite the turn. Sorry, this is not part of it. This is also I'm having some little commentary between the. I mean, I guess that would be confusing. What if the listener right now is thinking, "Hey, this is all part of the book." It could be. This is a weird book. It could be part of it, but I wouldn't make it so that meta, dude. All right, okay, here we go. All right, we got to be serious. This is serious voice narration. I will not actually do any commentary narration from this point on. This really is not in the book. Like, where I left off was whatever he was shot later that day. This is not in the book, all right? All this is just me being me, so just calm down. It's all good, all right? Anyways, all right. I probably will laugh, but I'm going to try hard not to, okay? This is not supposed to be a funny book. This is not supposed to be a funny book, all right? This is a pure novel, just a pure novel among the greats of the Bible, and what else? So there's Bible, and then what's the next one? Probably like Infinite Jest or like Gravity's Rainbow. I don't know. All right, so Here we go. Let's just start from the top. Starting from the top. Okay, that whole thing, starting now was the preface, was the real preface, because now that I've figured out what I'm doing and how I'm going to do this, that's part of the experience of this novel, okay? This is the future. You are a soul. You have a soul, most likely, unless you're like Jeff Bezos or something. But you're not listening to this. Actually, he does have a copy of this audiobook that I'm talking about right now. And don't ask me how, but he's already recording this. As I'm recording this, it's like going through the internet somehow, even though whatever, and it's going right into the Amazon servers and right into his penis rocket. And that's what he's listening to. Yeah. All right. Anyways, here we go. The Guide for Souls in the Future by Arnold Gallows. And then it says, only less will get you more. Chapter 1. Johnny was a detective who was investigating a murder that took place in a big blue house. He was shot later that day. Johnny took tests on his body and found out that his name was Bob. So he had to change all of his identification cards to Bob instead of Johnny. It changed his life forever. One day, as Johnny was walking down the street towards the Daily Cafe, his favorite cafe, he came across one of his friends. She was a very close friend, and knew Johnny, or should I say Bob, very well since elementary school, when they played poison on the walls of the school. So she walks by and says, "Hey, Johnny," and then he was about to say hey back, when all of a sudden he remembered the day he got shot and how he took the tests. So then he was like, "No, my name is Bob." So he takes out his shotgun from his back pocket and points the gun right in front of her face and asks her a question. He asks, "If you call me Johnny again, I'll blow your brains out." So she panics and says, "Oh my God, I won't, Johnny." Then she suddenly realizes that she called him Johnny. Then her life passes through her eyes. All the memories of her childhood, her past loves, her friends, and her whole life vanished. She got shot, but she was still alive. So she took some tests and she realized that her name is Johnny. The end. Question mark? Chapter 2. Johnny was walking down the street one day and he looked at the sidewalk. It was cracking all over. In between the little cracks were pieces of grass growing, fighting for air and sunlight and soil. The blades of grass turned into dancing ants wearing tutus. But they weren't regular tutus. They were made of Corinthian leather, which couldn't be found in New Zealand or Antarctica. So the ants danced until the sun came up and down 3 times. But for the strangest reason, on the 3rd day, the sun stayed up for 2 days. So basically, it was 4 days that the ants were dancing. But technically, it was 3 days, unless you count days by hours. So Johnny was watching in amazement, and he went back to his house and opened his pantry. In his pantry was a box. It had an old man on it whipping slaves to make them pick corn for him. Then he obtained a packet of microwavable popcorn and observed its packaged beauty. His toenails and fingernails turned into scissors, and he opened the package with his scissor nails. Then the package was opened. He then heard a loud bang, and the house shook like a monkey on a trampoline, falling off and hitting a tool shed's roof and sliding down off the roof, squishing a worm on its underbelly. So then the worm was wet. Johnny suddenly woke up, and he was in his house, holding the packet of popcorn. He knew that scissornails were impossible to have, so then he opened his packet of popcorn and placed it in the microwave. Then he set the time to 3,987 minutes. In the future, it took a long time to cook things. He then realized that it was still the year 2005, and it didn't take a long time to cook things. So then the microwave exploded, and then it imploded as well. But then all the pieces of the microwave flew everywhere again, because it exploded once again. They grew wings over a matter of minutes, and they flew out through the ventilation. They were flying and passed by dust bunnies, dust dragons, and sometimes, if they turned around a corner, dust dogs. They were the most gnarliest things in the world. They ate dust bunnies and bones. And sometimes dust dragon bones if they were really hungry. But anyways, they flew out into the air outside of the house. Excuse me. They looked at their microwave agendas that they kept in their backpacks, and after they looked through the whole agenda, they saw a secret task on the agenda that was hidden in the back of the agenda. So they read it, but it was only readable if you flick off a policeman in the middle of France while humping a Chinese dog until it exploded into toilet plungers. So then they did that. The task was then readable. It was dance with the ants in Corinthian leather tutus. So then they did what it had said. Then Johnny was still inside his house, shocked from the explosion. It burnt all of his hair off, but he got some magnets from the cupboard and magnetized his scalp so that his hair was pulled up, and so it looked like he had a whole head of hair again. But deep inside he knew and felt that his hair was forcefully grown. When he looked at his hair in the mirror, you couldn't see the souls of every strand of hair. He could only see fake, soulless little strands weeping for unforced growth. Then Johnny picked up his carpets that he laid on the ground before all of this happened, and he tossed them into the garbage. They weren't needed anymore due to obvious reasons of achievement. So then he was hooked on throwing carpets away, which caused him to go to rehab later in the story, but I shall continue with what happens next. So then Johnny finally sees that the bag of popcorn was there in the corner of the room. He opens the bag of popcorn, and then he almost had a heart attack when he realized that in the bag of popcorn was another bag of popcorn. He opened that bag of popcorn, and then there were ants instead of popcorn. He almost jumped out of his skin. So then he called his neighbor, who was a horse, Curly Sue the horse. She was a very beautiful horse with thunder thighs that could shake the computers in all of America due to Mexican tornadoes of the southern winds. So Curly Sue the horse came up to Johnny's house and rung the doorbell. Johnny asked Curly Sue to come to eat the ants as a joke because his plan was to say it was popcorn and have her eat the ants, but she wouldn't know it wasn't popcorn because she didn't cook it, and Johnny was a sick, twisted freak who liked seeing ants being eaten by girl horses as a fetish. If you check the history of websites he's been to on his internet browser's files, then you'll find sites of that stuff. Yeah, even I've been on his computer. It's pretty twisted and sick, even though I now go to that site daily to check on updates. Anyways, enough about me and my sexy ways, but Johnny opened the door to see that she was a giraffe instead. Wow, she had surgery while I was explaining the stuff about the internet website stuff. So then Johnny asked her, "Why do you have such a long neck?" Then she was like, just 'cause, and then she shrunk to a horse again because the surgery was very crappy, and she forgot to pay insurance, and she threw away her receipt. So in her mind she thought, dang it, I shouldn't have thrown that receipt in the trash the other day, but I had to. I used it to wipe my butt. So she explained to Johnny what happened, and she dug for her receipt, and to her surprise it was clean. She realized later that when she took a crap, she used regular toilet paper, and she dried off her hands using the receipt. So she returned it to the people at the surgery refund checkout center. So she got her money back, and then she just wasted it again on a surgery to turn into a penguin. So she turned into a penguin after 9 minutes. Then she came back to Johnny's house, only to realize that Johnny got surgery to turn into a giraffe. But then he turned back into a human, and then he didn't care about getting a refund at the surgery refund checkout center because he got a free surgery pass from the online websites that he looks at. So then anyways, the popcorn. He gives the popcorn to Girly Sue the penguin. She eats it, and then she dies in disgust and drowns in her own throw-up. Johnny then freaks out and then realizes that she was just faking. So then they take a big laugh together and enjoy the time. And then they both sit down on the curb and watch the dancing popcorn in Corinthian leather tutus. They were dancing popcorn because the popcorn bag contained ants, so it made sense that the popcorn was dancing and not the ants. Well, that is now the end of the amazing story. Or is it? Chapter 3. Well, it's not the end of the story. Johnny suddenly fell into a trap while he was watching the popcorn dancing. It was a big hole in the sidewalk, and it just sucked him right in. Then he entered into another dimension where Curly Sue the penguin was the king of Asia. She was the king of Asia because the position of queen of Asia was already taken by a blade of grass that was found in the caves of Timbuktu. So the blade of grass looked up his birth certificate because he forgot what his name was. He looked it up, but the lady at the counter of the birth certificate storage center was being a real bitch. She found out that her wife was cheating on him. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So she blew up and turned into a wandering spirit. Her spirit was floating around, and then it got the blade of grass's birth certificate. The birth certificate was decorated in a way that is impossible to imagine. In fact, the blade of grass couldn't even remember how it looked because it was so insanely and beautifully decorated. But he didn't find out the name, and his name was Blade. Yeah, so that really wasn't a very cool discovery since everyone called him Blade already. Then he remembered that he did remember his name, and he told everyone already and stuff. That's why everyone called him Blade. So then he melted into a puddle of green. He melted so liquid-like that he was not liquid-like. He was peanut butter-like. Except not brown. And creamy. Good. Anyways, yeah, he was a puddle. He had a puddle wife, and then his puddle wife killed Curly Sue the penguin, but denied it to the judge. But there really was no judge, and the whole wife-killing thing is just a fable that Blade told his sons and sisters every day to shut them up about making fun of his greenness. He was so green, like greener than an alien green, because aliens were the greenest mothers in the galaxy. You can't have a greener green than that. Besides, Blade, of course, well, he wasn't actually green if you had no eyeballs. If you had no eyeballs and you looked at him, then he'd be purple. But that's a whole different story. Johnny was in the dimension now, with the kings and queens and whatnot. There was this girl through that... there was a girl that... Wait, there was this girl, though, that Johnny had seen when he was mowing his hair. Her name was Cecilia. Cecilia was a girl who had a computer sewed to her arm. She sewed it on her arm all by herself. She was tired of going to the computer to check her mail, so she just sewed it on to her arm. It's pretty disgusting, if you ask me. But anyways, Cecilia one day got a virus on her computer, and then the virus was transported to her own body. Since she was sewed onto the computer, it affects her as well as the computer. If the computer does something, she has to do it too. It's pretty nuts. Well, one day the computer died. Just kidding. That would make Cecilia dead. But we wouldn't want that, would we? No. Well, one day the computer blew up into little pieces. Well, sadly, that's what happened to Cecilia as well. She was an awesome girl, but too bad Johnny didn't get to meet her and her awesomeness. Since she blew up with her computer and all, she was then buried in a graveyard, but not an ordinary graveyard. It was a graveyard that was made by putting many different sodas together all in one drink. The graveyard was full of dead souls like Cecilia, which was pretty creepy. Dead souls in a drink. So then along came this door-to-door salesman guy, and he saw the drink. He tasted it and said, "OMG, this tastes great. It makes my salesman-like stomach tingle with spirits and joy." So then he went on eBay. He put up for sale the drink, but he didn't really. He was only selling a picture of the drink, not the real thing. So Johnny was in Curly Sue, the Penguin King of Asia's computer. Her computer reeked of horse manure, but that was okay. Johnny had no idea why it reeked of horse manure when Curly Sue wasn't even a horse. Nuts, 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 bananas, Sunday. Well, so Johnny was looking at some girl horses eating ants websites, looking at some girls eat... He's still hooked on... Oh, gosh. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Bananas. Sunday. Well, so Johnny was looking at some girl horses eating ants websites because of his gross fetish. He's still hooked on that fetish till this very day. Anyways, he then got 69,028,235 pop-ups blocked except one pop-up. It was pop-up number 69,028,236. It was an eBay pop-up, and it read "Soulful Graveyard Drink." It will make you feel soulful and joyful at the same time. Place your bid now. So Johnny clicked on it and his computer exploded, but it was only a dream that his computer exploded. So in reality, it didn't really explode. It went to the eBay website. He then saw the item for sale by the door-to-door salesman. He placed a bid of 69,028,235. He placed that bid only because that was the only number he could think of at the time, and plus that's how many pop-ups were blocked. That number was also a lucky number in that dimension, until Johnny found out from a talking pencil behind him that the number was not lucky at all, but the complete opposite. So he got bad luck, and when he received the drink in the mail, it was only a picture. Johnny got pissed and pissed on his own piss, so the piss that was pissed on got piss. Shit. What? I don't know if I'm still in this parentheses. Johnny got pissed and pissed. Whenever you hear the side note, whenever you hear like backwards vocals, that means I messed up. So don't freak out when you hear that. It's just go along with it. Johnny got pissed and pissed on his own piss. So the piss that was pissed on got piss and pissed on his brother, who was also piss. So then he got pissed and pissed on his piss mother for some reason, and then the brother piss was grounded. The not grounded piss brother was laughing at his brother because of his stupidity. So Johnny was pissed, and then the door-to-door salesman was just laughing his head off. He laughed his head off so much that he was sucked into a wormhole that formed on the computer, and then he was sucked in and spat out right beside Johnny. Then all the door-to-door salesman said was, "Hi." Then the craziest thing happened. They both turned into computer mice. Then they were like, "Oh my freaking god, we're both mice. Not regular furry mice, but mice for computers." So then Johnny was still pissed. So then Johnny grabbed his wire that connected him to the computer and pulled it out. Then he used it to make a lasso thing like cowboys. So then when the door-to-door salesman mouse tried rolling away, Johnny used his lasso to grab him. He was grabbed, and then Johnny pulled himself towards himself. Then he opened up his ball that was on him. Ball that was in him. He pulled it out and bashed the door-to-door salesman mouse's head, and electronic pieces of mouse parts flew everywhere. Little printers and scanners were watching as this happened, and they all cried and printed big pages of tears, and then the scanners scanned those pages of tears, and then the printer printed out the scanned picture of the tear, and then the scanner scanned that, and so on and so on. Yeah, they were sad. So then Curly Sue, the Penguin King of Asia, made a law to say that mice shouldn't battle. So then mice all over the woods and forests all got arrested. So then their lawyers talked to Curly Sue, and then she realized that she only meant computer mice. So then she canceled the Ansel mice's arrests. Everyone was basically happy except Curly Sue, the Penguin King of Asia. Her parents got very mad at her because they found out about her mistake, even though her parents were still in the other dimension. There were dimension watchers. Dimension watchers were the people who watch every single thing that happens in all the dimensions. So then they found out about Curly Sue, and then they called her real dimension parents, and then Curly Sue was disowned. Curly Sue got really pissed and pissed on the Piss Brothers' sister piss. But all the piss just evaporated, and then it rained and the piss fell down because it was still stored in the clouds. Then also a newspaper fell down from the clouds. It said on the front page that Jesus died from blood clots. Curly Sue was surprised at the information that fell from the heavens, even though it wasn't from the heavens, it was from the clouds. So then she read about it and found out that it was false, and the scientists who thought it up were schizophrenic and retarded in the head. So Curly Sue was like, "Holy Lord but Jesus, this is garbage." She threw the newspaper in a 451 Fahrenheit fire. She then fell into the fire, and then she got out, though, because the Dimension Watchers pulled her out of it since she was the king of Asia, but she survived with 69,028,230 fifth-degree burns. It hurt. That's what she told me. Johnny went to his track banquet. Anyways, Johnny went to his track banquet, and he was a queer. That's what the squirming nipples of Century 67 said. They were pretty squirmy. Track banquets in that dimension were for crappy people who have nothing to do in their lives. They go to track banquets even though they don't even do track. They are pretty retarded to the max. Extreme. Well, Johnny went to his banquet and found a quarter on the ground. It was no ordinary quarter. It was a quarter of a quarter. It was 25% of a whole quarter. It was like when you slice a pie horizontally and vertically in half. Well, he found that quarter and was amazed at its beauty. He loved it so much that he married it. But he didn't ask the 1/4 quarter to get married so quickly. He took his time. First, he asked it out on a date to Burger King. Except he forgot that the store closes at 56:00 p.m. They had very long days that are 60 hours long, and instead of using colons, they use that little squiggly line thing on the top left corner of the keyboard under the escape button. Well, he didn't know what to do. He was freaking out. So they just decided they would go to the Jumbo Buffet. The Jumbo Buffet is a buffet that is very cool and has lots of food. But in that dimension, jumbo means tiny. So then in that dimension, it was the tiniest buffet ever to exist. When you enter the building, you hit your head on the ceiling. If you're Jake Sullivan, you destroy the whole buffet. Laugh out loud. If you don't know Jake Sullivan, he's the basis for that one amazing band in the real dimension. Well, anyways, Johnny went in and opened the door for the 1/4 quarter, and they went in. They approached the register lady, and then she said, "That'll be $20. And then Johnny pulled out his purse and then threw it on the ground and said, "Hey, I don't carry around purses." Then he pulled out his wallet from his front pocket. He carries it around in his front pocket because too many people have stolen it from behind his back. And he opened his wallet up, and then out popped those little springy snake things. You know, like those little prank cans of jelly beans, but it's really those springy snake things that pop up in your face, and then you're like really embarrassed because you actually thought it was jelly beans. Well, he opened it and it popped out. But instead of popping out and not going into his mouth, it did go into his mouth. It just flew right into his freaking mouth. He started choking, and then the 1/4 quarter performed the Heimlich maneuver, and then it saved Johnny's life. Johnny was like, "Whoa, I was choking." And then he got back to looking in his wallet. So he pulled out the money and gave it to the cash register lady. She accepted. She accepted it. However, when she counted it all up, it was only $19.375. $19 3/4 quarter. So then he realized that his date was 1/4 quarter. He was like, yes. Then he picked up his date and gave it to the cash register lady, and then the cash register lady put his date in the cash register. Then a guy came to escort him and his date to the table, when all of a sudden the guy said, Where's your date? And then Johnny was like, "She's right there." He looked down and saw that she had disappeared. Then he put on his date finder helmet, and then it was telling his brain that it was in the cash register. He looked in the cash register, and then to his surprise, he was arrested by the SWAT team because he forgot to ask the cash register lady to open it for him. So then he was shot twice in the leg, and one other bullet ricocheted his arm. They caught him and took him into those big truck thingies that they come in. They took him to jail as the 1/4 quarter was running after the truck and yelling, "Johnny, no!" She was running when another person came along and picked her up, and then she was like, "Hey, you're pretty hot, and you don't get arrested by SWAT teams. Let's go on a date to the Jumbo Buffet." So they went on a date and got married and lived a happy life and made the weirdest freaking babies in the world, who looked deformed like baby 1/4 quarters with arms and legs sticking out of them, and baby humans made 1/4 out of quarters. Well, they had a divorce because they couldn't handle the relationship, and they were both really shy. They had nothing in common. She had too many problems in her life. So then out pops Curly Sue, the penguin king of Asia, and she yells in front of a little boy, "Eat the freaking candy, you jackass! I hope inchworms don't weigh 50 pounds just to lay on the ground and be eaten by calculator zebras." Calculator zebras were zebras that calculate equations if you ask them the equation. Johnny was never appreciated in that dimension. When he rode his bike one day, the devil appeared right beside him while he was riding and gave Johnny a humongous noogie sandwich. The devil laughed and said, "I'll heal you of your nooginess if you answer my questions 3. Johnny laughed and said, "I won't screw your mama if you give me $1, dog." Then this guy in the background of Johnny and the devil's conversation was like, "Ooh, you just got burned, devil." Then the devil saw what the man had said, and then out came a 69,028,235 headed dog from the fires of hell. Each one of the 69,028,235 heads had a different personality. I also heard from the hell gossip lady that one of the dog's heads was emo. It was pretty weird. It was the only dog head that wrote songs about heartbreak and love and slitting wrists. Even though the emo dog head slits his wrists, all the other heads complained and wanted to freaking chop his head off. Then it would be a 69,028,234 headed dog. That would be just plain weird, since 69,028,234 was an amazing number in that dimension. Well, anyways, the 69,028,234 headed dog came to the guy who said the devil got burned, even though the devil took that as a compliment. And then the 69,028,234 headed dog just rammed the guy and threw him in the air, and then he fell in the emo dog head's mouth. All the other heads were complaining that they wanted it. Then the guy was all freaking out, so then he took out a large, sharp sword. He sliced the emo dog head's head off. The emo dog head said, "Oh well, I was gonna kill myself anyways." Dies. Then all the dog heads were quiet for 69,028,234 minutes, and then all of a sudden they yelled, "Yeah!" They all cheered, and the 69,028,234 headed dog invited the man to the Daily Cafe to have some coffee. They go in the store, and the 69,028,234 headed dog asks the Daily Cafe cash register lady for 69,028,235 cappuccinos. The Daily Cafe cash register lady was like, "Yo, dog, do you be whack? We don't got that many cappuccinos." "Oh, wait, dog. We do, dog." Or should I say dogs? So then she gives all the heads cappuccinos and the man too. The 69,028,234 headed dog then pays the Daily Cafe register lady $69,028,234 and 6.25 cents. The Daily Cafe register lady then says to the 69,028,234 headed dog that he needs 1/4 of a quarter to pay still. So then, luckily, the 69,028,234 headed dog picked up a 1/4 of a quarter on the street by the Jumbo Buffet. Johnny comes up and says, 1/4 quarter. And the 1/4 quarter says, Johnny. Then they kiss and make love in the bedroom that was in the back of the Daily Cafe. But then Robbie the party pooper was making love to himself in there already. He was all like embarrassed and stuff. So then he says, whoa, look over there. And he points behind 1/4 quarter and Johnny. They both look behind themselves, and then Robbie the party pooper runs away and hides. Then 1/4 quarter's mom comes in while they were making love. Her mom was Mrs. $1/4. She gave 1/4 quarter detention, and 1/4 quarter had to write, I will not love Johnny anymore, 69,028,235 times on a chalkboard. Though the little boy came back, the little boy who was screamed at, and he punched 1/4 quarter in the shin. 1/4 quarter was like, hey, I didn't do anything to you, little boy. I'm 1/4 quarter. Then the little boy was like, oh, I thought you were Curly Sue, the penguin king of Asia. Lo siento. Johnny. Later, after all of the stuff that happened with 1/4 quarter and stuff, Johnny grew old. He grew so old that when he bent down to touch his knees, he couldn't. His back would break, and then you'd hear a snap that could be heard from many miles away. One day, Curly Sue, the penguin king of Asia, was mowing her arm hair when all of a sudden she heard a loud crack. It was so loud that she thought it was a sound of a shotgun. It brought memories of her childhood, how she had parents who were shotguns. Yeah. The same parents that got mad at her for the big mistake about the mice and the battling. One day, when she was a little horse girl, before the surgery, she ate a telephone wire, those little spiral cord things that hang from the telephone, and then when she ate it, she didn't choke. Instead, she just saw seashells bouncing around in her head, and she passed out. She had a dream, not an ordinary dream. She had a dream that jaguars were skipping to the merry tune of Jingle Bells while stepping on mushrooms to make them inhale pumpkins for the 4th of July. The jaguars were wrapped in foil, and they smoked daisies for the pleasures of jumping in clouds. The jaguars jumped out of her head, and then the jaguars... The jaguars were wrapped in foil, and they smoked daisies for the pleasures of jumping in clouds. The jaguars jumped out of her head, and then the jaguars turned into a door. The door was made of snails. The door was a door made of snails, so of course it was a sticky and slimy door. Curly Sue woke up and went through the door. She got snails on her, and they sucked her blood, but not enough to kill her. Curly Sue's parents came in, and they were shotguns. They all got mad, and instead of shouting at her, they shoot at her. Whoa! If I had shotgun parents, I wouldn't want to get them mad. Well, then they blew a humongous hole in her stomach. It was the size of Japan. It looked like the Japanese flag, too. A big red circle. But anyways, the shotgun parents walked toward a gas station and accidentally shot the gas tank because they got mad at the outrageously expensive gas prices. Well, the whole gas station started levitating into the clouds, and in 69,028,235 hours, it was in the air floating on clouds. Snakes would hop off the floating gas station thinking that they didn't grow wings when they jump off, but then realize that they won't grow wings as they all splat on the cement streets below. So Johnny was walking one day under the floating gas station, and a snake landed right in his pocket. The snake turned into a plate of spaghetti with no sauce on it, which sucked. You can't really eat the spaghetti without the sauce. Then it would just be plain noodles without any taste. So then Johnny was like, Mamma mia! He threw the spaghetti in the air and took out his bow and arrow and shot 69,028,235 times, but only shot it once. All the other times ricocheted and shot all the snakes that were hopping off the floating gas station. But in that dimension, when arrows shot snakes, it gave them wings. So then the snakes were right. If you jump off floating gas stations, then you grow wings. Wings that were white and not green. Green wings are for the zoology studiers that live in the sewers and attack Michael Jackson, not physically, but by spreading false rumors of Michael Jackson molesting little boys. Johnny was watching the news when all of a sudden the TV turned off. It started shaking rapidly, and then it grew legs. They weren't regular legs, they were frog legs. The TV hopped around every day. Johnny was always on the move, trying to catch his TV, but it kept hopping and he couldn't catch it. He got depressed and fell into a state of depression, but in that dimension, if you're depressed, then that means you sew underwear out of American flags. It means you steal them from schools and flagpoles everywhere. You go to the tailor and make some underwear and show it off to your friends and say, "Hey, look, guys, I have flag boxers made of real flags, not polyester." So then Johnny was in depression. But then when he took magic pills he found in his armpit hair, it was entangled. It was entangled in his armpit hair. He turned happy and didn't make underwear. But then oxygen molecules flew around inside his hands. His hands were so airy, it was nuts. Johnny worked at a radioactive cucumber factory that was run by midgets who used woolly mammoth tusks as stilts so they wouldn't touch the radioactive slime on the surface of the radioactive cucumber factory. They also ate monkey legs for brunch just because they couldn't see through their mother's hearts. Well, Johnny was skinning the moose that was found in his dog Spunky's collarbone, and then all of a sudden his boss shouted on the intercom, "Johnny, get in here now!" Johnny goes in there and steps on this crab that was walking by, and then the crab turned into an old man. The old man started breathing heavily on Johnny's face, and the old man pulled Johnny into his pocket. Johnny was then in the old man's pocket. It was a dark and gloomy place with trees that had bikes and wheelchairs hanging from them, but sometimes no wheelchairs because the elderly dust bunnies had to use them. Yeah, the dust bunnies and dust dragons were in the old man's pocket. Unlike the vents, there were no corners to turn, so that meant there were no dust dogs. That was a good thing. Dust dogs could kick everybody's butts. But dust dogs also live in corners of things as well, and in the pocket. There are millions of corners. In the corner of the old man's pocket was a dust dog gang. Now, those were the worst things you could ever encounter. 69,028,235 times worse than just one dust dog. So then Johnny didn't know how deadly a dust dog gang could be. Johnny didn't ask the flying microwave pieces about them, so he never knew. And he came up to the dust dog and asked for a map of the old man's pocket. Then one of the dust dogs reacted quickly and pulled out his dust knife. He held it up to Johnny's throat, and Johnny was like, "OMG. He was like, "I did your mama last night, and she was wailing like a dust bird. Laugh out loud." Then the dust dog was so pissed and that he wasn't pissed. So he pissed on the dust dragon piss, and then the piss pissed on his aunt piss. So then the aunt piss didn't piss on her uncle piss. Instead, she just pissed in her Pampers. Yucky ducky lucky. Yucky ducky lucky. Then the aunt piss's mom had to change the aunt piss's Pampers, and then it was really gross. It stunk like a bottle of throw up mixed with a fat guy's sweat and dust bunny farts. Well, the aunt piss fell into a coma, and everyone worried about her. She was rushed to the old man pocket emergency center, and the dust dragon doctors, also known as Triple Ds, had to shock the aunt piss with one of those things like in the movies where the person says, "Clear." And then they put those 2 metal shocker things on her chest. Except the Triple D's shocker thing wasn't made out of metal. It was made out of toenails from a Yeti that was found in an abandoned cave in either Mount Rainier or the Lake of Fire. I forgot which. Lo siento. Well, the Triple D used the shocker, and then it didn't work because electricity doesn't travel through toenails of Yetis. It only worked if they were toenails of Sasquatches. But then the Triple D realized that Yetis were basically the same thing as Yetis. Wait, was the same thing as Sasquatches. So then he tried again, and then it worked, but then it just made the aunt piss die. That sucks for her. Then all the brother pisses and sister pisses and mother pisses and father pisses all came around, and they all cried piss. It was really gross, but oh well. I enjoyed it. Not that I was there. I mean, I would have enjoyed it if I was there. Just kidding. What the hell am I talking about? Well, Johnny never understood why the ducks in the pond always put their heads underwater. He was like, why? It always stumped him. He saw dust ducks in a dust pond by the Dust Dog Gang. Well, since the Dust Dog with the knife wasn't pissed, he stuck out his Dust Dog paw and asked Johnny for a paw-to-hand shake. So Johnny did it, and then he got shocked because the Dust Dog had one of the buzzer ring things on his hand, but it wasn't made of metal. It was made of Sasquatch toenails, of course. Well, Johnny looked up and he saw a dust streetlight. It was a bright streetlight. It shined in his eyes and he was nearly blinded. But then the Dust Eye Helper people helped Johnny and made his eyeballs back to normal and also gave him 20/20 vision. He could see things he'd never been able to see, like his back and behind his knee. Well, Johnny thanked the Dust Eye Helper people and gave them 2 golden doubloons. Johnny had gotten those doubloons from the Dust Pirates he fought who wore books as clothing, and their insides were made of carnations and daisies, but not roses since they have thorns in them. Only their heads were made of roses, and some of the evil dust pirates and aphids and snails and caterpillars eating them, because that's how the Dimension Watchers punished those evil dust pirates. The evil dust pirates made innocent and lonely dust bunnies walk the plank. It was very sad and melancholy-ish. Johnny got the doubloons by being rewarded. He was rewarded a special power. He was awarded the special power of being able to own 2 doubloons. It was the most special power in the world, specialer than a retard. No offense. No defense either. Well, Johnny received the special power of being able to own 2 doubloons because he did something for the Dust Pirates that no one had ever done for them before. Johnny gave the Dust Pirates head of a dusty Moby Dick. Laugh out loud. Okay, that was a little too gross. I apologize. Well, anyways, yes, he gave the Dust Eye Helper people 2 golden doubloons. Now Johnny did not have the special power anymore. He was special powerless. But deep inside he knew that he had a special power, and he didn't care if anyone didn't believe him. He just knew. Then all of a sudden a very mind-boggling gust occurred while he was under the dust streetlight. The dust streetlight then fell, and then the whole old man's pocket shook, and everyone was like, oh snap, the old man's having a seizure. Oh no, wait, it's just a gust of wind. The Dust Dog Gang didn't really care because they're cool like that. Johnny was all like, don't look at me, I didn't do it. And then all hell broke loose. Even the 69,028,234 headed dog was loose, but not really. So then the Dust Popo was like, hello, sir. It seems as if you've knocked this dust street light down. Johnny then said, no, it wasn't me. It was the one-armed man. The Dust Popo did not believe him, and Johnny could tell that with his crazy psychic abilities he got from a Vietnamese military wise man who he had met in the Vietnam War thing. The Vietnamese military wise man was dying, and Johnny poured alcohol and salt and vinegar all over the guy's battle wounds. And he was howling in pain. He was like, "You bastard! Whoa, it's actually feeling better." "Not. Oh well, since you tried to help me in my wound, I'll sacrifice my soul and give you crazy psychic abilities." Vietnamese military wise men had to sacrifice their souls to give other people powers. Well, anyways, the Dust Popo were like, "Cuff 'em, boys, he's going downtown." Johnny said in his head, "I need to go to bed and run away from all this dread because the Dust Popo want me dead, so I better run ahead." So Johnny ran. He ran fast, as fast as he could run. The Dust Popo was chasing him down. Laugh out loud. Johnny was running and running and running all over town. Laugh out loud. I mean, all over the old man's pocket. Well, then the Dust Popo got inside their Dust Popo vehicles and drove after Johnny. Johnny was in full panic mode. He was worried when all of a sudden he was running. He began to melt into the ground below him. His shoes stuck on the dust floor, and it was gooey, and Johnny was just melting. His whole upper body was melting in the sky as well. Then the Dust Popo were like, "Oh, dude, you're melting." Then they were like, "Screw it, we're not chasing a melting guy. That's just plain wrong and unorthodox." So they just went back to the Dust Donut shop and ate donuts and got fat and not skinny, even though in the dimension when you eat, you get skinny. Although if you're in an old man's pocket in that dimension, then you do get fat when you eat. In the dimension outside of the old man's pocket, everyone was usually medium-sized. Not too fat, not too skinny. But in that dimension, it was considered good-looking to be fat. Only some people were fat in that dimension, and it was usually the stars and actors and stuff. No one liked the skinny, good-looking, in our eyes, people, and all the skinny people wanted to be fat like the stars. Even some little girls go to rehab because they get overly fat. It was called de-anorexia. De-anorexia was suffered by one of the twin stars by the name of Carrie Mate and Smashley. They were the fattest girls you'll ever see in your life. They took off 3/4 of the dimension. They took up 3/4 of the dimension. Like Yo Mama, but that's a whole different story. Well, anyways, Johnny had done it. He fooled the Dust Popo that he was melting. He was like, "Yes, I faked them out." Then he tried to turn back to normal, but then his heart nearly stopped when he figured out that he couldn't turn off the meltingness. Johnny just kept melting and melting and melting and melting. There was no stopping him until the Dust Dog gangster guy from the Dust Dog gang helped him out and poured 1/4 cup of flour, 2 eggs, 3 bags of pancake mix, 69,028,235 pounds of milk on Johnny. He then got a humongous whisking spatula thingy, the little wiry thing that you use to mix things with, and stirred Johnny around and around and around. Then he took the whole mix and put it on a frying pan. It was cooking and cooking. The Dust Dog gangster guy adjusted the temperature of the stove and put it on high, and then it was burning very fast and quickly and bigly. Then Johnny was melted and mixed with all the other ingredients, and then suddenly he felt it getting warmer and warmer. He was like, "Oh no, I'm being turned into a pancake." Then the Dimension Watchers were watching all of this on their fancy, smancy, big screen televisions, and then one of the dudes was like, a surfer dude who surfed a lot, he was like, "Hey dude, we should help that guy." But the other bro was all like, "Nah man, I gotta catch some waves." Then the other dude was like, "Okay, fine, dude." And they both surfed together on West Beach. They also climbed up a cliff and wrote their names in big letters on the side of the cliff. One of the guys almost fell, but it was a close one. So then anyways, Johnny was stuck in the frying pan, halfway burnt. Then the Dust Dog gangster guy tried to flip Johnny over like Emerald Live when you hold the pan handle and then you flip the pancake. But then the Dust Dog gangster guy was a little too buff, and then he flipped the Johnny pancake very, very high. Johnny was going so high that it took 69,028,235 days for Johnny to finally see the light from up above. He could see a light that was very bright. Then he flew up and saw that he was outside of the old man's pocket, and he was back in the radioactive cucumber factory. He saw a fellow midget come up and say, "Hey, Johnny, you're a pancake. Awesome, dude. But guess what? I've got another puzzle for you. You can live in happiness too, like the Oompa Loompa Doompity Doo." Johnny was like, "What the hell are you talking about? I hate Charlie and the Chocolate Factory." Then the saddened radioactive cucumber midget walked away, slowly with a large pouting lip. Then he decided to kill himself because he was an emo radioactive cucumber midget. Well, they had a funeral and they paid great respect for the little midget dude. Well, anyways, Johnny asked the old man what the time was. The old man told him, "Why should I tell you? I just met you." Then he realized that no time had passed when he was in the old man's pocket. Then he realized that time did pass when he was in the old man's pocket, and his watch was 69,028,235 days too slow. Way too slow, if you ask me. Then, even louder than last time, he hears the loudest shout in the world from the intercom. It was Johnny's boss. Johnny just remembered that he had to go to his boss's office. Then he took a step towards his boss's office, and then out pops this old lady. She then pulls Johnny into her purse. But then Johnny pops back out and she says, "Oh, Ed, you've already been in old man's pocket. Damn him, he beat me to ya." Then Johnny was like, "Okay." Then she was like, "Have respect for an old lady like me. I'm way older than you. You should automatically have respect towards me." Then she hits him with a purse, and then she swims away in her jet-powered water bottle with fins and a large beak. She dives right into a pool of radioactive cucumber juice. She then turns into a giant cucumber lady of death and radioactivityness. It was Johnny the Pancake to the rescue. The giant cucumber lady of death and radioactivityness was rampaging through the dimension, and the Dimension Watchers didn't know what was happening because they were still surfing. One of the Dimension Watchers did such a crazy hang 10, man. You should have seen it. Then Johnny the Pancake used his Sasquatch toenail shockers to shock the giant cucumber lady of death and radioactivityness. She then pushed back a little, and then Johnny just kept shocking her, and then she kept moving back, and she suddenly fell into a giant aging machine. The giant aging machine was a machine that made things age. Johnny once put a rat in there, and the rat grew a beard and mustache. It was pretty intense. Well, then Johnny the Pancake pushed her in, and then he had the choices of setting it to old, older, and oldest. Johnny the Pancake chose old. The giant cucumber lady of death and radioactivityness was all freaking out, and then she shriveled up. Johnny opened up the giant aging machine, and then he accidentally broke the door that opened the giant aging machine because it was so tiny. Remember, that big meant small in the dimension. And then Johnny saw the most scrumptious thing. It was a giant pickle lady of love and happiness. Everyone was like, "Whoa, that's a cool pickle lady." She then jumped out of the giant aging machine, and then she grew wings and a halo, and she flew off into purgatory, not heaven. Well, then everyone was like celebrating with amputations, and she flew off and then he was like, "I sure hope I turn back into a human again." But after 60,028,000 28,235 seconds, he never turned back into a human. He was just a lonely pancake man. When all of a sudden the dancing spatula of Canoodleville popped up to say hello. The dancing spatula of Canoodleville knew that Johnny was a pancake. She did have eyes. She was like, okay, I'll turn you back into a human, only if you kiss a piece of paper that has 3 rips in it and a plastic cup superglued to it with 69,028,235 ounces of superglue, and then the piece of paper has to be dipped into a can of whoop ass and a jug of Abraham Lincoln's shaved beard hair. Kiss that and you'll be fine. So Johnny then looks for it and then he gives up, even though he didn't even look around for it even for 1 second. He's like, there has to be another way. Then she said that there was another way. Then all of a sudden she uses her spatula body to flip Johnny up into the air. He came back down and splattered on the ground, and then he was just a whole puddle of Johnny Liquid. Johnny Liquid was a very rare and expensive liquid in the early 1800s. Many Chinese women used it for perfume because it smelled so Johnny-like. Well, anyways, Johnny was all liquid-like, and then he was put into a container. He was shaken up, and then he felt himself turn human slowly again. Then he was finally human again. He was so happy, he felt so human-like. Then he finally approached his boss's office and he opened the door. He was making love to Curly Sue, the Penguin King of Asia. It was pretty sick. And then Curly Sue vanished into thin air. And when Johnny asked his boss what was happening, his boss just asked Johnny, what the hell was he talking about? Then his boss was like, why are you so late, Johnny? Then Johnny said, I'm sorry, sir. Then the boss was like, you're fired. And then Johnny was like, you can't fire me because I quit. And then Johnny stormed out of the room. He went on the curb and sat there for hours thinking about his life, his family, and what he's going to do in the future now that he has no job. Then all of a sudden, he sees this man who lost his guitar. The man says, hello, young man, have you seen my guitar? And Johnny says, why, no, I haven't. I'm sorry. Then from the heavens drops a guitar right into Johnny's hands. Then Johnny looked at the guitar, and then he put his hands in the position of playing a guitar. Then his hands suddenly started playing the most beautiful music, and his voice and mouth just started singing the most beautiful music ever heard before by mankind. Then a secret unknown man came walking by and said, hey, you're playing some Shaggy Mane, dog. Everyone was all like, whoa, we should check that band out. They sound so awesome. Then the guitar grew legs made out of guitar strings and then crawled away looking for its real owner. And then it just got ran over by a bicyclist. The bicyclist was Lance Armstrong. He was covered in yellow Livestrong wristbands. It wasn't even funny. He looked like a bicycling Twinkie with a white filling. Everyone always ran to Lance for some Livestrong wristbands, because they were so cool and everyone wore them, so everyone wanted to conform. Conformity forms our formations due to formal dances. Well, Johnny was just still sitting on the curb, waiting and waiting for something to happen. He thought, God, I have had nothing to do all day. Maybe I'll just go listen to the waves. Everything seemed right, surfing all day and staying up all night. He thought it was great, but his mind also relied on the world outside. But his eyes didn't stop him from seeing that the sea is sailed by the wandering boat of love and peace of leaving. So Johnny saw this random girl in a crowd and asked her to take his hand. He said, let's go. Then the girl was like, where? And Johnny said, how about to a place that everyone knows? Then the girl was like, how about a place that no one knows? And then he was like, sure, why not? So they walked together to a place that no one knew.
But then all of a sudden the girl trips on something and falls on the ground and almost twists her ankle. Johnny says, "Are you okay?" And then the girl says, "I'm fine, but I don't know how I tripped." Then Johnny looked on the ground where she tripped, and Johnny was surprised to see that it was 1/4 quarter. Johnny hadn't seen her in ages. Johnny forgot all about this girl. Then a guy by the name of Crever Trearguard comes up to the girl and helps the girl. The girl says, "Thank you. What's your name?" And then Crever was like, Crever? Then the girl and Crever start talking and get along real well, and they have a good relationship together. They live happily ever after until Crever experimented with radioactive cucumbers. Those things were supposed to make you very high, like the giant cucumber lady of death and radioactiviness. Well, when Crever experimented with radioactive cucumbers and then his life was ruined when Crever's dog found out. Crever's dog was not a regular dog. He was a dog that meowed like a cat. It was because Crever's dog ate this cat, and it was a cursed cat that made any dog that ate the cat have the voice of a cat. Well, Crever's dog found out about it and then grounded Crever until his brains fell out, and little sand shrews with business suits took his brains and put it in a blender, and they made smoothies, and then they all drank it, and one shrew announced, I'd like to make a toast." Then he said, to Crever and his delicious brain." Then everyone drank. Then everyone all puked it back out because they realized it was not Crever brain smoothies that they drank. It was dust bunnies. They all drank dust bunny smoothies. Well, then Crever was grounded, and the girl found out, and they never hung out anymore, and the girl ran away and got married with some random Hawaiian surfer guy. So in the end, Crever was all like, "Damn it, I hate those damn radioactive cucumbers." Crever never touched them again. It ruined his life. Well, Johnny then went back to the back of the jumbo buffet and started making love, and Robbie the party pooper was still there. What a loser. And then he did the same thing he did last time and escaped. But then 1/4 quarter's mom didn't show up, so then Johnny one day put 1/4 quarter in his pocket, but he forgot that he had a hole in his pocket, and then he looked for 1/4 quarter, and then he couldn't find her, and she was lost forever. He was so terribly sad. He checked in the dimensions lost and found, but she couldn't be found anywhere. Well, Johnny was just basically forgot about her after 69,028,235 minutos. Later that day, Johnny started heading down the street on the sidewalk when he noticed a crack on the sidewalk, but it was only his imagination, and he kept walking. He was strolling down, then he looked up at the street, and it said "Sad Road." So Johnny was like, "Sweet." Johnny was like, "Sweet." Johnny looked closer at the sign he saw, and there were giant tiny anteaters climbing up and down the sign. They were like ants, except they weren't ants. They were ants' worst enemy. Well, the anteaters were led by an anteater leader. Oh God, an anteater leader by the name of Heater. Heater, the anteater leader. He led the ants to victory back in the Cold War against the ants in Corinthian leather tutus. The anteaters won, and the bet was if they lost, then they'd have to live in microwavable popcorn bags. Well, anyways, Heater, the anteater leader, was sending his anteater army up and down the sign, licking the green sign that said "Sad Road," and then going back down to the ground, and then going back up and licking the green sign, and then that says "Sad Road," and then down again. Well, Heater, the anteater leader, saw Johnny just staring at them, and then Heater said, "'Kis now plague knocked Elgamar for Norbiachi, Johnny. Then they all jumped off of the sign and into their robot suits of fury that are destroyable by playing Shaggy Mane songs. They were tiny, huge robot suits of fury that are destroyable by playing Shaggy Mane songs. They could destroy Johnny in an instant. Johnny was thinking of what to do, but then Heater was heading towards Johnny with a missile ready to launch when all of a sudden the crawling Shaggy Mane guitar came back to Johnny and then into Johnny's hands. Johnny started playing Shaggy Mane songs again, and the robot suits that are destroyable by playing Shaggy Mane songs were destroyed. Johnny was like, "Woo, that was a close one." Then Heater, the Anteater leader, said, "Oh, we'll be back, Johnny. You'll see. You'll all see." Then all 69,028,235 of them all ran away. Then Johnny kept playing the beautiful song by the name of Have a Nice Day. When he played that beautiful riff, the sign of the road changed to Happy Road instead of Sad Road. Everybody was now happy in the whole dimension, so Johnny walked down Happy Road, and everyone he walked by had a great smile on their faces. You could tell that they were very happy listening to that wonderful music. Then on the grass by the sidewalk, he saw a little roll of toilet paper roll down into the sidewalk. On each little square sheet of toilet paper, there was a happy smiley face. It was a very happy smiley face. Too bad they would be turning into brown happy smiley faces soon. How sad. Well, out pops this piece of 0.7 millimeter lead. That lead starts multiplying. Then there were 2.7 millimeter pieces of lead, then 3, then 4, then 5. Then, after a while, you guessed it, 69,028,235 pieces of lead. Then Johnny was like, I'm not going to leave all this lead here to waste. I'll put them in my lead container. Then one day, a girl by the name of Najee was doing a math exam. Johnny was in the same math class, but he was already done with the exam. Najee was writing, and she suddenly started flipping out. She realized that she had run out of 0.7 millimeter lead. She didn't know where she could get some lead. So then Najee asked Johnny for some lead. Johnny then says, "No, don't have any." Then he checks his pocket and some lead, and he checked his pocket for some lead, and he takes out all of the lead he had. He gave them to Najee, and she did the exam and got them all right, because for a few that she guessed on, all right, except for a few that she guessed on because she didn't know how to do the problem. But luckily, Johnny also had his calculator zebra with him. He passed it to Najee, and it turns out that she didn't guess on those few problems. She asked the calculator zebra. After all this talk about his calculator zebra, Johnny was thinking. He thought about how the calculator zebra and Curly Sue the Penguin King of Asia would be a good couple, even though it would be better if Curly Sue was still a horse, but a penguin will do. So Johnny tries his best to try and hook them up. So Johnny writes a note to Curly Sue saying, "Meet me at the Daily Cafe. Love, Calculator Zebra." Then Johnny writes a note to Calculator Zebra saying, "Meet me at the Daily Cafe. Love, Curly Sue." Then they both go to the Jumbo Buffet. They meet there, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And then they both start talking and stuff, and then they get to know each other, and then they go to get what they want to eat, and they eat, and they get full. They got so full that their bellies began to erupt. You could hear a large growling of their tummies. Then there was a Mexican mouse with a sombrero that came up to them, except the Mexican mouse was the size of a normal human being and stood upright. Well, he came up to the cute couple. The Mexican mouse had a large mustache, and the left part of his mustache was cut off by a tiny, large cat from the 69,028,235th stage of Hercules' maze. The Mexican mouse never understood how to speak Chinese or Japanese or Sinhalese or Korean or Hebrew or Hindi or Dutch or Finnish or Greek. All the Mexican mouse could speak was English and Spanish, so the Mexican mouse asked the cute couple for some money, and then Curly Sue looks for some change. In her penguin pouch, Curly Sue pulls out the gerbil that was the size of a hand grenade. The gerbil actually was a hand grenade, and instead of a tail, there was a fuse, and it was going. So then Calculator Zebra did what any horse would do in that situation. He took a crap in his niece's pantalones and then had butterflies come down and pick up the pantalones, and they took the pantalones to a big corporate company building. The big corporate company building was filled with cold, heartless, and just plain mean men in suits. There were about 69,028,235 men in suits. There was also a boss who controlled the whole building. He was in the mainframe computer room. The butterflies placed the Calculator Zebra's niece's poopy pantalones into the mainframe computer room. Then the man in the suit in the mainframe computer room just looked up, and then the pantalones landed right on his face with a big splat. Then after a big splat was crunching, and then after the crunching there was a tiny sound of a needle falling onto cement. Well, then after that, the man in the suit took a very long shower all over his face. Took a very long shower. All over his face was brownness, even browner than a Mexican mouse. Then while he was taking a shower, he dropped the soap and it slid all over the place. Then he picked it up, then it fell into a ditch in his shower. The man in the suit had a ditch in the shower for no apparent reason. Now he wished he had never put it there. Well, anyways, after a couple of minutes, while he was using shampoo as soap, he saw a bright light ahead of him on the wall he was staring at. He was looking through it, and he stepped inside. He stepped inside the light. Whoa, where am I? All right. Stepped inside the light. He was then naked in a full room of kangaroos. Oh my God. They all got up on their tails and kicked the living daylights out of the man in the suit. Then all 69,028,235 of them started speaking to the man in the suit. They said, "Hey you, there is a gerbil grenade at the Daily Cafe. You should go stop it from exploding." Ribbit. Each kangaroo said one word each. So one said hey, and another one said you, and another one said there, and so on. Well, the man in the suit quickly thought about it, and then he decided he was going to save the cute couple at the Daily Cafe. So then he hops back into the shower, and then he realized he was in Bob Saget's shower. Luckily, Bob Saget wasn't in the shower at the time. Well, then the man in the suit was like, "Whoa, how'd I get here?" He sat on the floor of the shower and pondered how he got there. Then from the sky came the butterflies that carried the pantalones. The butterflies also had wonderful attire on at the time. They were wearing Livestrong wristbands and Japanese-themed robes with the little anime cartoon characters on them. They go to Japan every 69,028,235 years for migration. So they decided to get some souvenirs. While they were there, they also brought some of their families who were still who were little caterpillars. Well, then the man in the suit was carried and flown into space. He was flying pretty high. I mean, the butterflies were flying pretty high. They were like in space. That's pretty high. They could see the stars. Then they went faster than the speed of light. And the next thing they knew, that they were at the Daily Cafe. Then the man in the suit stepped inside the building. He saw the gerbil grenade and was like, the kangaroos were right. Then he was all like, no, you don't, like in slow motion. Then he was, then he took the gerbil grenade and gave it to the butterflies. The butterflies carried it to outer space. Then the fuse just stopped because there was no oxygen in space, and fire needs oxygen to burn. So then it never exploded, but then the butterflies realized there was oxygen in space, and because they were in that dimension. So then the fuse was still going. Then after a few seconds it exploded, but the butterflies caught on fire. They started growing into big balls. They were large balls. And they all started flying in every direction, and then they were the size of planets. Then they started burning, and all of a sudden, and all that was left of the burning was carbon dioxide and the other toxic and lethal radioactive gases. Some of the big balls of fire made rings form around the big balls. Well, then the butterflies still thought that they were butterflies, so they still tried to get back to the Daily Cafe. Oh, but they were so big that they didn't know where they were going, so they ended up going just around in circles. They all went around in circles, and in the middle of the circle was one of the big balls that was still burning, and that's how the planets took my sister away and made her dessert, and that's how the planets were made. I don't know if I read that right. Well, then everyone was safe at the Daily Cafe. Curly Sue was all like, oh man, good thing you took a crap in your niece's pantalones, honey. Well, then they started eating again, even though the Mexican mouse was still standing there waiting for the money. So Curly Sue then says, oh yeah, I forgot. Then she gives the Mexican mouse 2 doubloons. The Mexican mouse asked, where did you get these golden doubloons, por favor? Then Curly Sue says, oh, I confiscated it from some dust eye helper people in my throne. And then the Mexican mouse was like, tus huevos es muy grande y gracias por el dinero. Then the Mexican mouse suddenly died because a tiny, gigantic cat ate the Mexican mouse. The tiny cat said the Mexican mouse was scrumptious. Also, the 2 golden doubloons were lost forever unless you waited a couple of days in the cat's litter box. But the cat's litter box was like a desert. It was as big as a desert. You had to ride sand iguanas to travel through the litter box. There were sometimes these weird creatures that were big and brown. Well, Sir Curly Sue and Calculator Zebra denied to go on a mission to get the 2 doubloons back from the cat. So they traveled to the tiny cat's... they decided to go on a mission to get the 2 golden balloons back for the cat. So they traveled to the tiny cat's litter box desert. They found a good and healthy sand iguana to ride, and they both rode inward to the center of the litter box desert. They came across the weirdest things. There were toy cars, mice, bones, and giant hairballs. It really stunk in their litter box desert. Like, holy crap. I wonder why. Well, then they traveled for 69,020,235 paces north and did not find anything. Then they heard loud footsteps. It was a tiny cat. The tiny cat was taking a crap. Then the next thing they knew, it started hailing. Not clear white ice pellets, though. It was dark brown gushy pellets. They weren't as small as normal hail either. They were as big as buses and minivans and airplanes. Then one fell right on their sand iguana, and then the sand iguana was squished to death. Then Curly Sue and Calculator Zebra both took their tongues and ripped them out of their mouths and dusted them off with a painter's brush, and then they put their tongues back in their mouths. Then they started running and dodging the falling brown gushy pellets. Then after 3 consecutive hours, the hailing stops, and one last brown gushy pellet drops right in front of both of them. They were like, woo, that was close. Then they walk by it, and when it suddenly twitches. Curly Sue freaks out, and Calculator Zebra says, it's okay. Then the pellet twitches again. So they decide to observe and examine it a little more, and then it keeps on twitching, and they realize that they needed to open it up to see what was in there, so they put a wanted ad for a gushy brown pellet opener in the tiny cat litter box desert and daily newspaper. So then, after waiting a few days, someone finally responds, and it was a Sundance sloth from the south side of the litter box desert. The Sundance sloth was asked many questions by Curly Sue and Calculator Zebra. They wanted to know if he was the right person for the job. And it turns out, after many years of questioning, he was the right person for the job. So then the Sundance Sloth went to the gushy brown pellet and tried to open it up. He did a Sundance ritual before he could touch the gushy brown pellet. He danced around in a circle around the gushy brown pellet, and he was shaped like a triangle as he went around. Then he finally opened it after clicking his tongue 69,028,235 times. And hopping into a sand iguana's nest and wrestling a baby sand iguana. Unfortunately, the baby sand iguana kicked his ass, but it didn't matter if he lost or not. So then he went back to the gushy brown pellet. Then to the gushy brown pellet. Where am I? Then right when he was about to open it, the baby sand iguana... Holy cow, where am I? Where am I? Okay. Then right when he's about to open it, the baby sand iguana tries sneaking up behind the Sundance Sloth, but the Sundance Sloth pulls out a revolver and shoots the baby sand iguana right before it touches him. Then he blows the smoke from the revolver. Winks at this one hot girl walking by in the litter box desert. So then he finally gets to open the gushy brown pellet up. He opened it up, then they realized that it was the Mexican mouse with the sombrero. Oh, Lord Almighty! He was still alive. Then he comes close to Curly Sue's face, and then he says, Curly Sue, here are your 2 golden Then he collapsed and died in the gushy brown opened up pellet. So then the tiny cat buried the Mexican mouse up using his hind legs like dogs. Well, then Curly Sue and the Calculator Zebra went back to the daily cafe. They had a mocha latte and they shared it together. It was pretty romantic, if you ask me. There was even a large heart floating directly above them. I guess it was just meant to be. If you're in love, then hearts float above you and your lover to show that you guys love each other. Well, Johnny saw lots of hearts floating above people, but he never experienced it before. He was too unserious and too kid-like and immature. So Johnny tried acting more mature, but it didn't work. He always ended up acting retarded. So Johnny never found anyone. me see how much more. Oh, good God. All right.